me in sweet accustomed ways.
Good evening. I'm Coulter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.ca, as well as in the front window here at Canada's in downtown Campbellford. You can also catch us live at Spreaker and at our sister station, 420radio.ca. I'm your host, Al Graham. Tonight on the show, I have my joint host, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper, with me, and she has a couple of guests. We got two of them tonight, then they'll be with us the whole time. These guys are here to talk to us about something that is very important to them, as well as many others. But before we learn more, it's time for Kim and I to have our weekly chat. Eh, Kim?
Yes, for sure. We've got to have our chit chat first about all the events taking place across the Canada and the world.
Yes, yeah. I guess it's a bi-weekly chat. It's every other week, right?
Yeah, unless there's 5 weeks.
Yeah, you're right there. That happens 4 times a year.
Yeah. Those months I'm busy.
Yeah. Let's see. News. We got a couple of news items that we want to touch on, and one of them was some news that we got today, and that was on somebody on the passing of Gord Downie. I know it's not cannabis related, but a lot of people know Gord Downie and the Tragically Hip.
Yeah, for sure. Canadian favorite, beloved Torontonian, Gord Downie, poetic lead singer of Tragically Hip. He was, battling cancer. So, it is kind of relevant to our community because a lot of the cancer patients that we see in this community, they come to us because of the cancer. And that's when they find out about cannabis as a medicine for cancer. It's still unknown at this time if Gord and his family chose to look at that route at all or anything, and that's their personal business whether he did or he didn't. But it does affect Canadians worldwide because he was a very much beloved musician in our country.
Oh yes, I can remember the first time I saw them was at the American Fairgrounds, and I believe it was the early '90s, and that was obviously with their earlier music. And it was. I know I really enjoyed their show, and watching the videos online and that there was always very entertaining to watch. I know I always enjoyed it.
Oh, for sure. Fantastic musician. He'll be sadly missed. His music will be sadly missed, for sure.
Yes, and as you mentioned, we don't know whether if he tried the cannabis route at all or not. It's I can't pronounce the actual cancer name.
Glioblastoma.
There you go. Thank you. and the I have seen one of the videos they used to show in the documentary series as I was going around to the cafes there a few years ago. There was one researcher who talked about how that was treatable with cannabis, but it was something that was very rare, and there was this one guy who had died or hadn't died. They expected him to die within 6 months, but here he was 3 years later or 4 years later, he was still alive. Yeah. But, it doesn't work with everybody, unfortunately, right?
That's right. You know, everybody's different. We all metabolize different, ingredients differently within our own bodies. What works for one will not work for another, and that's why I try and stress with people: this is not a cure by any means. It can be a useful bridge. It can be a useful tool to help some, but it's not going to work for everybody, and it's most definitely not a cure.
Yeah, it's just no different than any other, like a pharmaceutical drug. There's no guarantee that every pharmaceutical drug is going to work with every person.
That's right. That's exactly right, and that's why there are so many brands. And it's the same with. There are so many brands. There are so many, strains related, element related, whether it's CBD or THC, as well as all of the other cannabinoids. There's a lot of brands of cannabis. There's a lot of brands of pharmaceuticals because one does not work for everybody.
That's right. Exactly. I know some of the drugs that I've been on, people have had issues with them. So,
yeah.
All right. And also, I see our health ministers are getting together to have a bit of a gab. All the provincial health ministers are going to talk about opiates and cannabis.
About time the conversation happened. Only problem is, I think a lot of the information they're using in these discussions are outdated studies. They're not using relevant information that we have today to address the concerns and the positives and the negatives throughout all of it properly, because they're not using relevant information and up-to-date information that we have available in today. They're using the ancient history.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting about the two of them, they're getting together to discuss those two items, but they're not actually talking about how cannabis can help with the opioid issues that we're having here, in Canada. They're actually talking about, worrying about the effects in society negatively for cannabis. They're not talking about how one can help the other with the problems that we're having in the country. Which I thought that they would be doing something like that.
Yeah, the focus seems a lot very skewed there. They should be, emphasizing the positives rather than, worrying about the possible negatives that are only based on outdated information. So, I mean, again, we come back to the information that they're using, which is outdated. That's the cause of these skewed beliefs, and it takes the focus in a completely different direction than what it should be going. I mean, the whole thing is just crazy.
It sure is. It's ridiculous. Like, why not try to get together to show how cannabis can help with this opiate thing? Because 13 people are dying a day.
Yeah, let's look at the statistics in Colorado, how opiate addiction, alcohol abuse, everything else is going down, drastically. Every year the statistics are amazing on how much they're going down in legalized states. Let's concentrate on that. But no, let's look at the 1 in 100,000 that's going to have a reaction because they smoked under 19.
Yeah. It's like some of the discussions that we'll have tonight. There's always mixed. There's always a mixed view on it, right? So, all righty, Tim. What's saying? What do you think? We're bringing our guests now.
I think so. I'm sure they've got to say as well.
What do you got going on in the background? Someone's got some noise going on there. Okay. Well, at this time, let's bring our guests in. And as I said, there are people here to talk about something that's very important to them as well as many other people. And I'd like to welcome Mike and Jason to the Pace Radio Show. Mike and Jason, you both there?
Yeah, we're here. How you doing, man?
Good. Hey, welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah,
thank you for having us. Hey, no, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining us. Great to have you here.
Yeah, and we'll be having, let our listeners know, we'll be having some little bit of music during the program. We got these two fellows that are within a band, and we'll be talking to them about their music and other stuff as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
All right.
Okay, well, Kim, I'm going to pass things over to you and let you get going with the questions, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Sounds good. So for our listeners out there that aren't sure what's happening here, we have Jason and Michael with us from CYPHIER. The band called CYPHIER. Now, you guys are operating, it's basically a two-person band that you guys are into some retro music, I guess you could call it. What kind of genre would you put CYPHIER in?
We used to call ourselves industrial because that was kind of anybody that made loud music with computers, they called them industrial. And about a year ago, we played a show in Toronto, and someone came out and saw it and said, "Wow, that's more punk rock than anything." So to kind of be a little bit different, we called ourselves electro punk. But really, it's just music like anything else. I mean, we listen to everything. We'll experiment with everything, and then whatever works ends up on the record. So
awesome.
We don't really categorize ourselves. Kind of other people categorize us for us.
Do what we do.
Yeah, you do.
That we do.
And the people who are listening will decide which way your genre is. I don't know. What it is? It must be outside.
Yeah, somebody, can you take yourself off speaker? If you're on speaker, can you remove yourself from speaker?
I'm not. I had to take a short walk because it got a little noisy in my house. So I'll put the phone up to my face.
Yeah. We got some background.
That happens with children and dogs.
It sounds like it's the quieter option.
Sounds like the world's biggest bomb going off, man.
Sorry.
No problem. I'm sure you'll find a quiet spot.
Yeah, these things happen.
Yeah, we've had some guests in the fore had to go lock themselves in the bathroom, so. Wherever they can find somewhere where it's quiet, eh?
Yeah. In my house, that's a hard place to come by.
It is, eh?
I go over there when I need to be reminded what it's like to have noise around in the life.
Very cool, very cool. So you guys, you've been on the music scene for a couple of years now. Now, Mike, we had you on the show, and we got a small overview of your story, and that's why I had to have you on. It was really touched me. I found it extremely intriguing. You've been a long-time musician and aspiring musician. Love doing what you do, but your issues and your illness caused you to leave the stage. You weren't physically able to do it anymore. And that's where cannabis came into play for you and gave you some relief, and now you're back on the stage.
Hey, man. Holy cow. It was a weird kind of strange thing for me. I've been performing for years as a DJ or as a spoken word performer, and my back deteriorated to the point that I couldn't walk. So I was using a cane or a walker, and they were shoving opioids down my throat like they were going out of style. And finally I got scared one day. I went into the doctor, and they started using words like Oxycontin. And I won't put anything in my body that's referred to as hillbilly heroin.
Right.
So that kind of freaked me out a lot. And a friend of mine said to me, "Have you tried cannabis?" And I said, "Nope." And I'd smoked weed when I was a teenager for recreational purposes, but never a medical purpose. And he brought me a cookie at work one day, and after work I ate half this cookie, and I got up to go to the bathroom, and I got halfway there, and I went, "Wait a minute, I'm not even using my cane. What's going on here?" Right. And I suddenly realized, hey, wait a minute, I can move again. And my kids live in the States with their mom, and they were up at Christmas time, and I had some chocolates that had THC in them, and I was able to play soccer with my kids and run with them. And then when the opportunity to get back into the music scene came up, I was able to DJ a night, and I was like, wait a minute. And then I met Jay. Well, we've known each other for 20 years, but I had written some poetry about some rough times in my life, and I had recorded it all, and I would listen to it. And I sent it to Jay at one point, and he was sending me back these amazing songs that he had made just by cutting it up. And those songs became our first record. And we got the record together, and I said, of course, hey, I can move around again. I can walk. I can do all these. I wonder if I can do a stage show. And that's how we got started. We started playing live shows, and haven't looked back. And it's up until actually yesterday, and only because I had to have 2 teeth yanked out of my head. I had not taken an opioid in roughly 2.5 years, 3 years.
Wow.
And unfortunately, cannabis does absolutely nothing for the pain of a tooth being removed.
That's for sure.
Actually, they don't recommend you smoke when you remove a tooth. Go ahead.
And I went, at that point, it was more of a, what can I do to promote this to other people? Because I think that one of the things you guys touched on during your news chat was the fact that the statistics and the facts being used are often outdated, often skewed in whatever direction people want them to be, whether that's a positive skew or a negative. And so, we have this wonderful platform available to us that we've been able to put a little bit of on each record, have a little bit of reference to it. The first record, not as much, because that's directly related to my struggles with suicide and things like that, which also is something that I treat with cannabis. But on the second record, there's a song called World Without Borders, where there's a very distinct line talking about governments, and one of the lines is that we believe in a world where people can smoke a plant to feel better. Because it's ridiculous that people can't. Then we did the newest record, which is it's very, very masked and hidden in there. There's a couple of little points where it's brought up. And to me, I didn't feel that kind of met that niche. So when we just released a box set about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there's a song on that that's directly related to the opioid crisis that you were discussing, and kind of the government's way of dragging their feet in legalizing cannabis. So it's really become part of what we end up talking to people about after the show.
Right.
One of the things that was
advocating is a huge part of what you're doing.
It's a massive part. One of the groups that we've had the pleasure of touring with tours around in a van with a giant Marijuana for Trauma logo on the side of it. And quite often we'll end up sitting at the merch table when we're with them, filling out Marijuana for Trauma paperwork with people.
Right.
To make sure that they get it filled out properly, because it's so important that people are at least aware of it. It's not for everybody. I mean, I know people that have very, very negative reactions to it.
Yep.
Because they can't handle the THC side effects.
Yep.
But it's like any other drug, right? You have to, and that's part of it. When we talk and I'll do stage performances where I'll just go on a stage and talk about my experiences again, usually related to mental health issues and suicide and stuff. And it'll always be part of that discussion. And one of the things I always tell people is, you can throw all your opioids in the garbage. With some of those opioids, they're strong enough and the addiction's strong enough, it can kill you. Like, understand that.
Yeah.
But this is a way out.
There's not enough marijuana on the planet to kill you. There's not enough on the planet to kill you, right?
You gotta suffocate.
I'll happily try, but it won't work.
Yeah. For sure.
And I'm in the A and B of this too. So,
what about you, Jason? Have you got Mike's got the medical end of it all? Are you a medical user or the rec end of it all?
I'm not, but it's been talked about. Just because I have my own health issues and stuff like that could really be. I was diagnosed at 23 with bipolar disorder, so right there. But the thing is I've also had the experience where I've had people say, dude, when you smoke up, you're so much more mellow, like even keeled. And I honestly think that, it's something worth looking into. Like, we fully believe in it. We've corrected the education of our children about it.
Right. Yeah.
Because, you have the police officer come in going, it's bad for you. Well, if you use it recklessly, it can be bad for you. But, Uncle Mike.
Yeah. Well, everything in moderation, right?
Exactly.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah. Now, do you
remember
find
having that?
So you were used as an example, Mike? Sorry, Al, you were used as an example, were you, Mike? You were Uncle Mike to Jay's kids?
Jay's kids, I've always been Uncle Mike to. I mean, they're great kids. I love them. But I remember the one day I was there and I was having a really bad day. So I'm like, okay, I got to go outside and smoke a joint. So I was rolling a joint at the table and I was like, Jay, I'm sorry, man, but I got to do that. And he's like, don't worry about it, man. And the kids came over and they were like, what's going on? And I'm like, okay, look, no matter what the cop at school says to you, some people
it's medicine.
use this the way you use Tylenol. And it was cool to be part of that. I mean, my kids, both their mother and I both use it medically, so they've grown up their whole lives really around it. So it was really neat to be involved with someone who, in a situation where they didn't. And Jay and Vicky have been absolutely phenomenal in support of that with the kids. And if I'm having a rough day, they'll tell the kids, "Oh, just let Uncle Mike go outside for a minute." So yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's very touching to be accepted. And so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. My kids also grew up with it, and I'm encouraged by seeing more parents being open with their children. This is a medicine. You don't have to go and hide in the bathroom to roll your joint and then take a walk around the corner to smoke it because my kids can't see it. I'm glad to see that kind of mentality is going the way of the dodo bird.
Yeah, I wish I had been more upfront with my children because we did run into a bit of an issue. But after that, with my grandchildren, it's Papa's medicine.
That's right. It's medicine. It's a prescribed medicine from a doctor, the same as an opiate or any other medication that you would get from them. What were you going to say prior to that, Al? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask Jason. He mentioned he had bipolar and using the cannabis, and I was wondering if you're ever, I don't know whether you talk to people about the benefits that you found with cannabis and your condition, and if you share those stories with people, do you find that people just sort of look at you and say, well, you don't look like you're sick, or do they have some concern that, you're being that it's a mental health issue, whether that you're having a negative effect on yourself by using cannabis?
I don't think I've really had any negative comments from anybody because, I mean, I know so many people who smoke it recreationally, and I don't a lot now, but you sit there and you go, okay, well, when people are just basically saying, sorry.
That's okay, you're outside, we understand.
I found my mute button, so I'm trying to limit that. But anyways,
never apologize for the sound of a motorcycle, man.
That was just a little one too. But anyways, I think when people are coming up to you saying, there's something to this.
Yeah.
Where I can take all of the. And also, my bipolar is atypical. It's from a severe concussion I had when I was younger. So that might also be part of it, too, is the fact that, it's not a typical genetic thing, too. I don't know about that, but I've had people come up, basically say, last night you were even-keeled, you were social, you were okay. Not blasted, but lately you seem to be doing a lot better. And when people are kind of giving you, that's kind of advice in a package right there.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard that before, and I've used that statement. I don't get high, I get level.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it's I've been way up and way down, and my own solo projects kind of track that trajectory. But I think that, I've always thought that there was something to be said. And looking at Mike, with the physical aspect of it, it's like A and B. If he hasn't been able to take his medicine for whatever reason, you can tell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just by looking, and with me for the more mental side of things, basically going, you're a lot more level-headed than you have been.
Yeah,
it speaks for itself, really.
It sure does. And when other people are noticing it and seeing that and commenting about it, it helps to educate other people to see all that. But it's all evidence and proof, that there is a benefit for cannabis with your condition. So.
Yeah, well, it's a wake-up call. When other people come up to you and tell you that, it's like, well, you know what? I was smoking a lot that day, and this is what I was smoking, and if you have people say, you were an asshole that day, you say, yeah, I was smoking that day too, but this is what I was smoking, and then you can find out what the differences are, because the plant material that you're using can make a large difference as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, getting the right strains for sure.
Well, the thing is, when you're dealing with recreation.
Go ahead, Jason.
Well, the thing is that when you're surrounded by recreational users, you have no idea where, what it's been sprayed down with or anything like that. But, since Mike and I have been working so closely together, I've learned about adjusting levels of the medication itself.
Dosing.
Yeah, dosing and finding out about strains, strain-specific medication is so important. And, like you say, getting it from friends, and you're getting what basically is called street weed nowadays, I guess. You don't really know the origins of where this came from. It's just a guy of a guy had this stuff, so you're smoking it, Dispensaries, legal producers, all of these avenues now are opening new doors. So you can get strain-specific medication, and you can go in and say, well, I want a sativa that has a high CBD component, and you know what you're going to get, and you know how it's going to affect you. And I think that is so beneficial to not just patients, but non-patients as well.
I think it's one of the things that in jail laugh when I say this, but I have a specific strain that we kind of joke is kept in an iron box, because it's kind of like my kryptonite. But I use it when things get really bad, when my depression kicks off really hard, when my back goes. But it's really strong, and I have very, very, very severe reactions to THC. I tend to smoke very low THC marijuana very, very normally, because I will just go flying. And we actually jokingly refer to it as Medicine X. And I'll take that as an oil and spend 8 hours sitting on a couch staring at a blank TV screen. But I'm not in pain. I'm not feeling suicidal. I'm not having anxious fits. But
and you're not killing your liver. And you're not killing your liver. You're not killing your kidneys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent... when I first got my license about 3 years ago, I probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 or $7,000 on strains that would just sit in a box, because I'd smoke it once and then go, okay, that did nothing for me. Mm-hmm. So let's try something else, because it was so important to do that research for me, to me. And one of the things I wish was that the LPs, I know I'll be ostracized in the cannabis community by a lot of people, but I'm a supporter of the LPs because it's convenient for me.
Right.
Because we're on the road a lot, and when I'm not with the band, I drive truck and do deliveries, so I don't have the time to go to dispensaries. I just don't have that kind of time in my life.
Yeah.
And so it's convenient just to have it show up at my door. But I wish what you could do with them, I wish they would put a system in place where they could send you a joint, where you could buy one joint of a new strain that came out and go, hey, I want to try that, and not have to buy it in lots of 5 grams. Because there's strains that I've bought that I've gone, this is garbage, it does nothing for me.
Yeah.
So it's a hit and miss game.
Yeah.
But when you find something that works,
well, if we didn't have
when you find something that works,
yeah. When you find something that works,
trial and error. Like it's the same thing with.
Go ahead, Jay.
Oh,
oh, sorry, I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing when you're dealing with medicines for mental illness. It's always there's no direct. It's not like an aspirin where you take it and they know exactly what it's going to do.
Right.
You spend a lot of time searching for the right balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Hey,
the
guys.
thing is I mean, yep.
I'm just going to jump in here so we can go for a commercial break.
Pay some bills.
Pay some bills. I can tell I'm going to have to. I had to interrupt.
Yeah.
Because we just keep on talking. Okay, tonight our bumper music is a little bit different. As you've heard, Mike talk about, the suicide end of things. We've been talking a little bit about mental illness with Jason as well, with his bipolar. The bumpers aren't music; it's actually some information to deal with the suicide and cannabis. To tell you the truth, is what it's going to be about. So.
Good.
So we'll listen to that. We'll go to a break, and then Kim and I will continue our discussion with our guests, Mike and Jason of the band CYPHIER. And this is the Pace Radio Show. We're live at lifestyleradio.ca.
Cool.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Researchers may have found yet another benefit of marijuana use, this time a decrease in suicide rates. A new study published in the American Journal of Public Health found that, quote, suicides among men aged 20 through 39 years fell after marijuana legalization compared with those in states that did not legalize. The negative relationship between legalization and suicides among young men is consistent with the hypothesis that marijuana can be used to cope with stressful life events.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet. www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
CTCP now operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888 and grow on with CTCP.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck, Crop King, and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
BMA offers cannabinoid testing, so if you want to prove you've got good medicine, head to BMA Hydroponics and prove it.
So a team of researchers, Elliot, analyzed data that was collected over a 17-year period and found that there was essentially a decrease in any of the states that had legalized the use of medical marijuana. So here they're saying this is consistent with the theory that when you legalize marijuana, people sort of self-medicate and they use it to be less stressed out and chill out. Okay. What do you make of it?
Yeah, hey, welcome. We're back. Hey.
That was an interesting clip, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. And I got more coming up, too. All right, tonight on the show we got our guests, Mike CYPHIER and Jason Norwood, and Kim is here as well. Before the break, we're talking about cannabis, mental illness issues, suicide, as well as the bipolar issues and some of the benefits people have been finding. Kim, I know you've got something you want to keep discussion here, so I'm going to let you take the reins again.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Al. Yeah, we talked a bit about, how you got your start with back into music with the help of cannabis, being able to get back on stage, and being able to get rid of your cane and how much it's helped you, which is just fantastic. How did you get into using cannabis as a medicine? Like, did you stumble upon it by accident because you were, a recreational user? Did you seek out help? That kind of thing. Did you see a doctor? How did you go about it?
Well, it's actually funny because I had a terrible experience with marijuana when I was about 18. I was DJing at a club, and I'd had a couple beers, and someone said, "Do you want to smoke a joint?" And I said, "Sure." And I was sick as hell afterwards. And I at that point, I'm like, I'm never touching this stuff again. Obviously, it wasn't the 20 some odd beers I had drank.
No.
Had nothing to do with it, right?
They had nothing to do with it. It was the one joint I smoked. So I stopped using cannabis altogether at about 18 years old, and I'd say roughly about 30 was when my back started to really bother me.
Yeah.
And they started giving me pills, and it was one pill after another. And it would be, here's a pill for this. Oh, and then we're going to add a pill for this, because this pill is causing this. And eventually I got into this big spider web. I was swallowing 15 pills a day. And that was just the ones that were prescribed. And of course, there's an addiction level that goes along when you've got that many medications in your system. And I ran into a friend who was a very strong cannabis advocate. I actually worked with him, a guy named Justin. And he started talking to me saying, hey, you need to try medical marijuana. And I'm like, you know, man, no, last time I smoked weed, I puked everywhere. And he says, well, don't smoke it, eat it. And I said, what? And he, you know, because I knew nothing about it at that point. I was completely uneducated in it. All I knew is that I walked around work. I was a restaurant manager walking with a cane or a walker, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I tried this. Like I said earlier, I tried a quickie that he had, and I thought, well, this is amazing. I can walk. So I made an appointment with my doctor. And I won't bring a name into this, but my doctor is very, very closed-minded, doesn't like cannabis as a medication, doesn't agree with it. Certainly with my anxiety and depression and all that, she thought it would make matters worse.
Yeah.
And showed me study after study after study that would make matters worse. And I said, well, you know, maybe if I could walk to the store to buy my cigarettes, I wouldn't be so miserable all the time.
Yeah.
And this lets me walk. So you can give me all the statistics you want. I'll give you one statistic. I've used my cane once in the last week since I started using this stuff.
Yeah.
So she proceeded to put me on this really, really horrible, horrific experience that I hope nobody has to ever go through again, where she kept telling me that you have to take all of the different potential medications for your illness before I'm going to consider cannabis. So I was literally switching psychotropic drugs every 2 months. And if you want to see your brain, and I hope if you don't have someone on a censor button, I hope cursing isn't bad, but if you want to see your mind go completely fucking sideways,
yeah,
change psychotropic drugs every 2 months for 2 years.
Yeah.
It got to the point that my girlfriend that I live with left me. Like, she was like, I'm done. I can't deal with you. And I don't blame her. And to this day, I love her to pieces, and I don't blame her because I was a miserable prick to be around.
Yeah.
And then
those things, I mean, they mess you up. And when you're changing dosages and changing brands and changing types, it's putting you on a fucking roller coaster.
And they're changing. They're trying to alter your brain when they keep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went through that with that. And then, of course, the pain, none of this is doing anything for pain, regardless of what they tell you. Any doctor that tells you that your Wellbutrin for depression is going to cure your back pain, I've yet to see it happen. In my personal experience, it's bullshit, but
wrong.
Whatever. Hey, that's one, Jay. Jay likes to count how many times I say bullshit in a conversation.
We have a language sticker that goes up every once in a while. So.
Yeah, we'll just call this episode explicit.
That's probably a good idea. But so they started changing pain medications, and it was, you know, innocent enough. Okay, well, try Tylenol 1 instead of regular Tylenol. Well, Tylenol doesn't do crap. No. So then they're like, oh, well, let's try Tylenol 3s. Well, okay, Tylenol doesn't do crap, so stop giving me Tylenol derivatives.
Yeah.
And then they give me, you know, morphine derivatives and this. And I'm going, okay, now I can't go to the bathroom. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So now I got to take a pill for that. And I climbed up to 15 pills a day, and I'm like, okay, at this point in time, I'm not living anymore. I'm dead.
That's right.
I'm legally dead. Thank you for doing what I couldn't do myself. You've killed me. I'm going through the motions. My son looked at me one day and he said, Dad, I'm scared to be around you.
Yeah.
And that terrified me. I just, to hear my son say it, because my moods and it depended on what time of day it was. And so I made an appointment at a cannabis clinic, and I went in, and this guy started in with, well, you got to try all these different medications, and and I said, I've been through all that, man. I'm not going through another 2 years of that. And so then he said, oh, you got to get in to see a pain specialist. We're not doing anything until you see a pain specialist. And I said, okay, I'll go see a damn pain specialist then. So I had to go back to my Neanderthal doctor and say, hey, I need to see a pain specialist. Yeah. And at that point, she refused to give me a referral. And I said, no, you don't get to refuse to give me a referral. I manage my health care, not you.
Yeah.
And I had to take that stand. And eventually I called the office and I said to the secretary, I said, okay, just send me my file. I'm done with you.
Yeah.
I want my medical records. I'm done with you. I'm going to find another doctor. So, of course, she called and said, what's this all about? And I said, well, I want a pain specialist. You know, I want a pain specialist. I'd like to get into a cannabis clinic. And since you'll never prescribe it because you're so worried that someone's going to come along and knock on your door and go, you prescribe cannabis and treat you like the boogeyman, give me a pain specialist. So I got into the pain specialist. You know, I mean, I was in there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And the pain specialist said, okay, here's the deal. You've got a nerve that's intertwined with your spinal column running from top to bottom. We can't do surgery.
Right.
We can't do acupuncture. We can't do this. We can't do that. The only thing that's going to help you is a lidocaine infusion, and that's only going to help you on a limited basis because you can only get 6 of them a year paid for by the government. And after that, they're several $1,000s a pop. Oh, and I went, well, that sucks. So she then says, without me even mentioning it, she says, but what about cannabis? Have you tried cannabis? And I said, no, I've tried it and it works. That's why I'm walking. As a matter of fact, I smoked some this morning, but I have no idea what I smoked and I wish I could have a little more control over it. And, so she basically referred me to Dr. Mike Hart, and I went in to see Dr. Hart. I mean, I was in his office 5 minutes, and he was like, "Okay, yeah, this is exactly what you need." So here's 5 years. He writes the prescription. Cindy was waiting for me in the waiting room after everything her and I had been through together. She was waiting for me in the waiting room, and I came out just crying because at this point, like, it's all of a sudden there's angels singing and shit, right? It's like freedom.
Somebody's actually doing something for you.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
And it's really weird because I got originally, you know, they always start you off with that, hey, let's try a trial prescription. We'll do 3 months. And I went home that night, took all 15 pills, and threw it all in the garbage that night. I said, I'm not touching any of this crap anymore. It's all going in the garbage. Went through a week of nasty withdrawals. It felt great. And, you know, here I was ready to start on my new life. Well, we did our first show as a band. I jumped off a bar. Like, I'm climbing on bars. I'm having fun. And I busted my foot. And, of course... So here I am, I just threw all the pain medication out, and I break my foot, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, you got to take this medication for the pain because cannabis doesn't touch a broken bone. I'm like, shit. So I went back to Dr. Mike Hart 3 months later and went, you know, you got to do your P test, and he found opioids in my system, and immediately he sits me down in the office, and I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life because here I'm thinking to myself, he's going to take my license away from me. And that was the moment where I realized that we, regardless of the open-minded thinking people out there like yourselves, Mike Hart, you know, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. There's still rules that are so stringent in place that someone who's gotten their life back, it can just be ripped away from them in a moment because of something stupid like a broken foot.
Yeah.
And exactly. He, of course, he was super understanding, and he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to write you another 3-month prescription. Next time you come in, no opioids unless we've got reason like a busted foot or something, you know. And I said, okay, yeah, no problem. And I was super careful. Like, I wouldn't even take an Advil. And got through those 3 months. And last time I went in to see him, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, my appointment was even shorter than my first appointment with him because he asked me, you know, what do you use? How do you use it? And it was very painless. I mean, I think for me, like I said earlier, part of the procedure that I found very, very frustrating, as much as I am a supporter of them because of convenience, the licensed provider system has a distinct glaring flaw in it, and that's that you can only get what they deem to be necessary and deem to be available.
Yeah.
And there are strains that I can't get anymore that treat my problems, and when I call them on it, well, don't worry about it. We'll have that strain back next month. Well, there was a period of 8 months where I was waiting for a specific strain that treats my depression.
Yeah,
like, hold on, guys.
Could you just imagine going in and getting your prescription order, and they say, "Oh, sorry, it's going to be another 8 months before it arrives." So that's not. It's
crazy.
Yeah. I want to throw a couple questions at Jason in, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And, Jason, we've been listening to Mike's story there about what he's dealt with. Now, I believe you had mentioned earlier that you're medical, but not medical. Do you, for your bipolar, do you have to use the pharmaceutical drugs in order to control things, or are you just basically, self-medicating?
Well, right. You'd have to qualify it as self-medicated when we're talking about cannabis, but again, I've been gaining a pretty hefty education on that.
Yeah.
The pharmaceuticals that I do take right now are actually sort of incomplete because I also had open heart surgery 3 years ago.
Oh.
And so they had me on the bipolar meds, and they went to put me on the heart meds. And they said, well, wait a minute, you can't take this with this and this with this. So, it's almost, until I can kind of find a way into the medical system, it's almost, when things get, when my brain goes sideways, and it's almost necessary, just because, it does help. And it does help me to stay on an even keel, to be a good parent, or at least try to be a good parent, and
have you had any discussion?
And function. It's all about functioning. And for me, it's kind of like, well, I can take these, but their effect is very limited right now. So that's why even my wife and I are talking about, okay, how do we go about this?
Yeah, well, that's the big question for everybody is, where do I start? Okay, I'm interested. I'm getting the education. Okay, now what? Who do I talk to? What's the next?
Is the doctor going to fire me? Is the doctor going to fire me if I bring it up? And
how do I talk to my doctor? Do I have to find a different doctor? I want, and then there's also two kinds of patients. There's the patient that is so educated to the point that they know what they're doing. They want to be in charge of their own health, and they want to be in charge of their regime and what they're buying and everything else, and they're the ones that are taking care of it. But then you've got other patients, which sounds more like the one category you're in, Jason, where we want a doctor to follow us. I've got other outlying health conditions that need to be monitored. I'm adding cannabis into this regime here, so I need a doctor that knows I'm doing it and is going to follow my progress. So there are two types of patients that are looking at this, and you have to get a doctor specific to what your needs are.
Correct. And I mean, there's a couple of other things where I'm looking at, okay, I've been referred to new people, so I'm just waiting on those referrals so that I can test those avenues and see if basically get a more concrete, because the heart doctor is kind of cut me from Toronto, kind of cut me loose, so I have to figure out a way. I have to go for a referral for them to say, okay, everything's working good. You don't have to take these meds. Okay. Oh. Then talk to a psychiatrist and basically go, look, this is effective.
Yeah.
And I don't just play around with it. I don't smoke a whole blunt to myself and go, well, gee, I feel so much better now. I realize that there's a process to it.
Right.
And, but, it's kind of like, it's almost like playing the waiting game in the regular system before, I find my way into medicinal marijuana because,
Right.
But I mean,
It's a learning
Sorry, I lost train of
experience.
thought.
It's a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to wade our way through it and figure out what's best for our own lives. As a parent, and as a parent myself, I can say that I sought comfort on a personal level. Having a prescription protected me and my children from outside forces. People can't interfere and say, "Oh, you're just a pot smoker," if you've got a prescription for it.
Right, and I think I think the general attitudes are starting to loosen up. But now we have the big conversation about Canada legalizing it countrywide.
Yeah.
I think that the conversation and the stories are going to get a lot louder at this point because it's like, hey, I don't have to create a space in my basement to hide away from it all.
Right. It's the same as going to the liquor store and picking up a case of beer or a 26er. You're going and you're picking up your 10-gram bottle and you're coming home and rolling a joint, and it's just as acceptable as having a beer these days, or it should be anyway.
It's really neat that you bring that up, because one of the people that I was terrified to talk to about it was my father, because my father's very old-fashioned, and here's a guy that lived, drugs were bad. During the 60s, he was, one of the greasers, not one of the hippies kind of thing.
Right.
And he, when I started using medical marijuana, I talked to my mom first, and of course she immediately said, well, I've got some pot in the cupboard over here. And I'm like, what? She's like, don't tell your dad. I'm like, don't worry, I won't. Thanks for the lead, Mom.
Don't tell Dad.
But, I was sitting on his, we were at a family reunion and my back was really bad. So I went outside with my vaporizer. And he came out and he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Just if anybody asks, just explain to them it's medical. And that switch in his mentality, it took me a long time to talk to him about it, but the narrative has definitely changed from marijuana is bad to, hey, wait a minute, here's a plant we've been squandering for years.
Right.
So,
and it's funny how for that generation that you're talking about, because I have several family members in that generation in the same mindset that you're talking about. But that doctor's seal of approval. Well, the doctor gave you a prescription, therefore now it is okay.
Yep.
It's like that stamp of approval. It makes all the difference when there is absolutely no difference.
See, I got the great fortune of having been raised by hippies, so there's really nothing to hold back on a conversation like that.
Right on.
And of course, there's the other side of it as a drug too, and as a medication is that there's occasional times where I'll say to Jay, hey, I need a creativity break in the middle of a recording session and go out and smoke a joint, because it opens your mind a little bit to what and I find it helps me attack an issue from a different direction.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing better than a good sativa during a show. I mean, I'm sitting here now and I have my sativa extract with me. I have my dabs all set up here and I'm dabbing away with my sativa, prior to the show and throughout the show. It brings out the creativity in you for sure.
I mean, I do all our driving when we're going on tour or whatnot. And when we stop, the minute the car is stopped, I'm out of the car rolling a joint in the back of the car. And before we go on, I'm like, okay, I'll be right back. And I run outside and smoke another joint. So it helps me just keep that laser focus you need, especially when you do political music like we do. Because I've had shows where I haven't and gone, oh, wait a minute, that's bad. That was a terrible show. Let's never speak of that one again.
Right.
And there's this new narrative that's come out now, cannabis is a placebo. And this has only happened since we started announcing the legalization plans. And one of the things that I said to someone the other day, I was having this debate with a guy online, and he's like, "Oh, it's a placebo." And I said, "I don't care if it's a placebo. I can walk and I don't feel suicidal. It can be a sugar cube. It works."
That's right. That's right. And as for
I
the
think it's
placebo,
funny
the science kind of debates that. So.
But the science absolutely disproves it. But for every study that we can say that says here's it disproving, there's some pharmacy paid medication guy that can say, "Oh no, that's wrong. Here's what's really happening."
Yeah.
So we live in such a weird time right now, and cannabis is right in the middle of all of this craziness going on all over the world, and it just seems like such a weird thing to be debating and talking about. When you got groups marching around saying we want to exterminate entire races. And here we are talking about, can I smoke this plant, please? Fuck off. Like, it's ridiculous.
Politics.
It really, I have to.
Yeah, it's break time. I was just gonna say the same thing. I'm gonna have to interrupt them. I knew it.
I looked over and saw my mic was muted. I'm going, oh, no wonder they can't hear me.
You're talking to me and nobody home.
Yeah, myself.
Those sponsors are not going to be happy.
Before we go to our commercial break, we've got some music tuned up. We're going to play 30 seconds to a minute of your song, your newest song, I believe, 419.
Mm-hmm.
You want to briefly describe a little bit about it, and then we'll jump into that before we go to our commercial break.
419 is off of a box set that we put out called Suspicious Behavior, which is off our original record label. And we recorded this song recently. We did a series of songs that are inspired by bands that inspired us. And there's a wonderful, wonderful band called Converter that does Power Noise. And normally Power Noise doesn't have lyrics, but Jay sent it to me. I went, "This is awesome. Give me a few minutes." And literally it's kind of a rhythmic chanting about the opioid crisis and how it relates to what the government's telling us about cannabis. So the actual full title of the song is 419 Waiting on 420, which is we talk a lot about American politics. This is kind of our shout out to Justin Trudeau and saying, "Hey, Justin, it's time to put your money where your mouth is, man."
Right on.
Exactly.
That's what this one's about.
Okay, guys, we're going to hear about 45 seconds of the song. I'm going to ask you to everybody to mute your mics just so there's no background noise going on. And then right after the song, we'll go in the commercial break and we'll come back after the commercial.
Awesome.
All right.
So
this is 419 and 420. Okay, go ahead.
In states where medical marijuana has been legalized, the rates of suicide actually fall. The study was performed by 3 American researchers who had their findings published by the Institute of the Study for Labor in Germany. Undoubtedly, these stats, although unable to make it into a U.S. journal, actually look valid. What the researchers did was look at the suicide rates in the 3 years preceding legalization of marijuana in multiple states. Then they looked at suicide rates in the year that marijuana legalization took place, and then once again at 3 years after the laws went into effect. The results showed that the suicide rates decreased by about 5% on average in states that legalized medical marijuana.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
BMA offers cannabinoid testing, so if you want to prove you've got good medicine, head to BMA Hydroponics and prove it.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck, Crop King, and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Hi, this is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Patrick Seifert from Olympia was there, right in the mix. He founded an organization called 22 Too Many. He says in states that have allowed medical marijuana use for veterans with PTSD and other issues and ailments, there's been a noticeable decrease in vets committing suicide.
Because of the failures in the VA, in the medicines that they're giving people. You know, the only two things that are legal to a veteran when they get out of the military is pills and alcohol. And they're both very cheap on base. Pills are free and alcohol is cheap. And that's all they know when they're coming out of the service. They don't know about the healing that can come with cannabis or holistic healing.
I think it's...
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for tuning into the program tonight. We are being broadcasted, as always, here at lifestyleradio.net and .ca, as well as our sister station, 420radio.ca. Tonight's bumpers weren't music, but news reports that I found online detailing educational information around cannabis and suicide. Them and much more can be found online by putting suicide and cannabis into your favorite search engine. Today on the program, we got Mike CYPHIER and Jason Norwood of the band CYPHIER, and my joint host, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Well, guys and girls, Kim, we got 20 minutes, half an hour here left Where are we going to next?
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk a bit about, you know, where they get their ideas for music. Their music is somewhat controversial. It's very much in your face about events taking place today, and it's very it's real, you know. It's not made up music and a whole bunch of words put together. It all makes a statement. I know a couple of your original first tunes that you related to and released were regarding suicide and how close and near and dear to your heart that issue is. But your latest is very political in nature, as I said in the news release about tonight's show, very much about the politics and the way of the world today. Tell us about your inspirations for the latest album.
Actually, it's the latest album, Realpolitik, is the word Realpolitik means government through logic and reason, which is very much, if you we come up with our ideas, we spend hours and hours and hours on the phone just talking about politics. I mean, we're not the most exciting people you ever meet. But something will happen. The first single off the album, our record label, the guy that owns our record label, Ryan, big shout out to him too. He's amazing. I had posted a video of Richard Spencer getting punched in the face, and you'll hear me refer to Richard Spencer from time to time as my favorite fascist, if you can have such a thing, because he's the most ridiculous speaker I've ever heard, absolutely asinine. And there's this video of him getting punched in the face, and all of a sudden we saw people who were previously pacifists posting this video going, ha ha, great, look what happened to him. So I was talking about it with Ryan one day, and we started joking around about Punch a Nazi, and we were doing a show in Toronto, and I'm a huge Blue Jays fan. I think I mentioned that last time I was on.
Yeah.
And I got the crowd to chant, "Let's go Blue Jays." And in the middle of them chanting, all of a sudden it just popped in my head, wow, that works to the same beat as the words Punch a Nazi. So I got them chanting Punch a Nazi. Well, we came home, and like 2 days later, we're writing this song. And it's funny because when it was released, Jay does wonderful graphic arts. All of our album covers are done by Jay. Jay does all our graphics. And he did this World War II style poster for the single cover. And we posted it, and of course, because I like to stir the pot a bit, I had hashtag Richard J. Spencer on it, just to see if anybody would bite. Well, they did, and initially they tried to have us banned from Twitter for it. We had a lot of, we've received threats that if we continue to play the song live, they're going to beat us up. We've played it, I think, 26 shows since I've gotten that threat, and I'm still very, very much unbeaten.
Now, there was a big uproar about this on social media, as I recall, as well.
There sure was, yeah. There sure was. There was a lot of the alt-right people became very, very offended by the fact that we had released a song called, and their big beef was, you released a song called Punch a Nazi in the Face for Peace, and we already have a song called Punch a Nazi, which is really, really, really terribly done, blatantly racist, anti-left-wing song. It was so horridly done that I was like, yeah, but ours is actually well written. And it became to the point where I think there wasn't a morning for about 3 weeks, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, where I wasn't calling Jay going, holy crap, can you believe what the idiots are saying about us now?
Yeah.
But it was crazy. It was just crazy what they did. And so we released Punch a Nazi. We actually, the way we record is we record each track in its entirety. So we go into the studio and we do a full song, and then we'll try playing it live and see how it resonates with the crowd, and we'll build from there. And we were already playing Punch a Nazi, and Ryan says, well, now we got to do a full-length record. This is great. And I said, well, let's do an entire, let's just go in your face. Let's just forget the subtlety that we did on Subversion, which has songs like Breathe and Natural, which are all metaphor and all that. And I said, let's get rid of the metaphor. Let's just go in your face, say what we're saying. And if people don't like it, to hell with them. I don't care. And it's had its negative effect, which I find interesting, especially when it comes to the media. The second single off the album, or the song that we used to promote the album, surprisingly wasn't Punch a Nazi, because we had promoted the living shit out of that song. We started with a song called Media Horror. And of course, everybody initially thought, oh, this is about, people that get sucked up into the media. No, it's not. It's about the damage that, quote unquote, fake news or whatever you want to call it, the partisan newscasts were causing on a global level, because you would get people saying things like, Donald Trump's he's a racist. Well, we all know that, but they would be putting words in his mouth that he didn't say. And he says enough stupid shit. You don't need to add stuff.
That's right.
He's still saying it. It's going to go right on to his whole term. He's going to be spewing out shit.
That's right. That's right. But the media is in control of the narrative, right?
And they looked at us and went, wow, you can't say things like that. We've had a wonderful publicist working for us, and she put together a beautiful press release for us. Beautiful, really, really wonderful. She used a lot of big words. I sound like Trump. She said it bigly. No, but she did this beautiful job with it. Tracy did this beautiful job, and then she sent it out to everybody, and nobody picked it up. And I'm like, but we would see every time she'd send the press release out, we'd see a spike in the song Media Horror and the number of people that listened to it.
Right.
So because we aren't afraid to challenge the media, actually there's a wonderful sample in the song that says, if you want to control power, control the media and challenge power. We're not afraid to step up and say, the media in this case is wrong. And as such, they very much buried the stories that have happened with us that are very much, in our opinion, newsworthy. I'm not talking about the entertainment media, because I could care less what TMZ does. Right. But, we live in a conservative town. I mean, if you've ever been through London, you drive through and you go back in time 50 years.
Yeah. Like most of rural Canada.
Even in London here, I mean, the media wouldn't touch it. We got a request from a local place. Oh, we want to review your CD. We dropped the CD off, and then got a message saying we can't review this. So we understood what we were getting into when we did it. There's songs on the album.
They couldn't review it because of what? They didn't like the type of music that you
No, I think it's more to do with the content.
The content on it. I think one of the things that scared people a lot was there's a song on it called Suffer in Silence, which is literally about the fact that the world is progressing exactly, and this album has a very, very eerie quality to it, in that we've almost predicted things to have happened. But the song Suffer in Silence is all about one of the great samples in the song is, you can't change the world through moral suasion, you have to change it through force. And I don't believe that people understand when they listen to that song, because the chorus is, if you suffer in silence, there will be violence. And that's what we're seeing today. I mean, when you've got, 100,000 people marching through Charlottesville with friggin' tiki torches, there's only one purpose to that march, and that's to incite violence.
Yeah, that's right.
And it did in the end.
Yeah, it did. So I mean, you're highly political and in tune with the state of politics and the state of the world and the direction that we're going. And you're not afraid to talk about it from a negative standpoint, I guess, rather than going with the status quo as some are.
Now, Jason.
Someone wants
Mike, you mentioned that Jason does the artwork for the albums. Now, we just talked about what inspires, the type of music and your songs and stuff like that. What about Jason when it comes to your albums? What inspires you in your artwork that you come up with?
In the artwork?
The images are on it. Is it related to the music that's within the album, or is it just something that comes along and that?
It usually comes out of the concept of the album. I mean, we did an EP, Hand Grenade, and before we had picked that, I had done a design that was based on an old photograph of an old telephone switchboard in operation. Because a lot of what I look at when we're doing Cypher is communication. There's a lot of people that are saying a lot of things, but nobody's really conversing. So I find that when I'm designing for Cypher, a lot of it comes more towards the communication aspect of it. I mean, even with the cover of Realpolitik, it was somebody who has no eyes, no ears, but has a big mouth. It kind of goes with the tone of the album there, but that one was a happy accident. But I find I'm big into old technology as well, so that kind of factors in there as well. It's like, this is how we used to communicate, and it was much more of a direct process.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you hear me, but are you listening?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of that going on out there, isn't there? Where people are being heard, but they're not listening.
We actually had an hour-long conversation planning our next 3 or 4 live shows today about that very subject, about how can we do this and put together a live show that's going to ask that very question. Okay, you hear what we're playing, you're enjoying the music, but are you really listening to the words?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's some people.
We played a show in Ottawa, which was amazing because people were conversing. People were saying, "Let's go outside and talk about this," and I think that's why one of the fundamental reasons why we do what we do is, it's like, okay, talk about this. Yeah. And if we have to initiate the conversation, then
so good.
Do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just getting
one
people
of my favorite experiences.
Absorb what you hear, right? Take it in.
I think it's funny because I've noticed one of the things that we saw when we were in Ottawa that was really, because of course, first thing I had to do was go smoke a joint in front of the Parliament building because I'm like, I got to do this.
Done it.
Off the checklist now, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
I think most people that once they become medical and you're legal, I think we all kind of do that. You push the envelope a little bit. It's like, well, I can smoke a joint here, so you know what? I'm fucking going to. I think we see a lot of that with new medical patients.
Oh, I saw a medical patient using a vaporizer during a Supreme Court case.
I think we may have lost a couple of our guests.
Oh, it does look that way.
Yes, it seems as though we've lost connection with both of our guests.
Yes, well, we'll see if we can
get them back.
See if we can get them back in.
Shout outs and right at the end of the show. I was about to, talk to them about the shout outs for the evening.
Hello.
Oh, got one of them back, so that's good. Who do we have?
You got Mike back.
Awesome. There we go. We've got Mike. We lost both of you at the same time. Wasn't
that weird?
Yeah.
Let's just see if Jason comes back in.
Yeah.
We still got another 5 minutes here left, Kim.
Yeah. We got another 5 minutes or so. We're about to get to the shout out portion of the show pretty soon. Before you were cut off, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I've got lost.
Oh, I was just mentioning the experience in Ottawa of walking down the road out in front of the Parliament building and like having this big chalk drawing on the road that says "Use 420 to stop fascism." And I thought about it for a minute. I thought, when I first saw it, I thought that's dumb. And then I started thinking about it, going, if everybody just sat around and smoked a joint and talked, we wouldn't have the problems in the world we have now.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
You don't see a lot of people that are sitting around smoking a joint, you know, trying to lynch someone. So, I mean, one of the things that I found funny just in this show, as a quick aside while we wait for Jay, was while you were playing 419, I just had this visual of a bunch of people sitting around hitting the bong, and all of a sudden that comes on and goes, what the hell am I listening to? You know, just kind of a weird, because a lot of people, when they hear some of the stuff, they're like, what the hell is this?
Right on.
Yeah, Jason's back. We got Jason back there as well. We can hear you, Jay. Okay,
I
guys.
lost the signal.
Yeah, well, we lost you both at the same time. I'm glad you made it back. We're at the end of the show now. I think Al was just about to talk about shout-outs.
Shout-outs, exactly. I was just waiting for Jason to come back before we got into it, and he's back, so it's that time. Hey, guys, we got the two of you. Both of you get a chance to do a shout-out to a person, place, a thing, a website, you know, promote your next show, whatever. This is the time to do it.
Well, I think the big one is I got to give a shout out to the folks at, and I'll kind of slide a quick second one in here. But it's to the folks at Rise Up TV. Finally someone's got the guts to put us on an international platform. So in May, we're doing a tour all across Ontario that's being filmed for a syndicated TV show called Rise Up TV. And we're really excited about that. We'll be playing, I think, Windsor, Toronto, Montreal, Niagara Falls, and of course here in London. So that'll be fun. The other thing I'll just quickly mention, if you like the political side of things, in the next month or so there'll be a spoken word album that I'm putting together coming out called 14, and it's done under the Lewis Cypher name. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be a lot of fun.
Right on.
Good.
Very
right
cool.
on. Right on. Okay, Jason, have you got something you want to throw a shout out to?
I just want to take the time to let people know that we need to start talking if we're going to affect any kind of change. And I mean, that's part of where I come from is, you know, getting mad at what I'm seeing. But the thing is that if there's absolutely no discourse, then, you know, and we can't have this discourse with a limit of 140 characters. There's no way. And you know, I think there's things are easy to scroll by. It's like grab some time and dig in. You know, things like there's information out there on pretty much everything we talked about and on the show, and I really think that discourse is the key to getting rid of a lot of these stigmas and a lot of these issues that are going on. But nobody, again, we go back to the, you know, is anybody listening? And I did a song on my last solo album that was basically around that. It's like, nobody's listening to us.
Right. So have the conversation off Twitter, off social media, in person, and in more than, like you say, 140 characters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's how information gets around, and, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
That's right. Share it. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. Just so you know, we've got some customers in the background here. If you hear some noise while I'm talking, that's what's going on.
All good. All good.
Yeah,
Got customers. It's good.
Okay, Kim.
Yeah, tonight my shout out is actually for myself. My shout out is going out to anybody out there. I'm looking to get flooded with information. I have a new situation that I'm dealing with on the home front. As everybody knows, my family now consists of dogs. I have 5 dogs, so there's always new and wonderful events happening with them. So my latest situation is my oldest dog, my 12-year-old lab, has just been diagnosed with diabetes. Now, I'm not familiar with this illness very much. I have heard that cannabis can help with diabetes. So if you're out there and you have information on diabetes and dogs and any way that cannabis can help, or diet, or any information at all, I'm a sponge for that right now. Please shoot me a message on social media or via email. Shoot me all the information you have about diabetes and dogs. I need info.
There you go. Exactly. I know there's benefit with diabetes in humans, but I don't know about with the dogs. But that'll be interesting to see what kind of information you can get.
Yeah, apparently she's in bad shape. I'm glad I took her. She was just not right, and I took her to the vet, got checked, and she's got really bad diabetes. It's right at the start of it, but I have to give her 2 injections a day. So this is a whole new ball game for me and a whole new experience for me. I have no experience with this, so info is required, please.
There you go. Okay. Hope you get some. Okay, just let everybody know I will be back next Wednesday with Alicia and her guest. You can find Pace Radio on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter at Pace Radio, Instagram, Pace Radio Show, and you can find us on the web at pace-online.ca. Thank yous as always to our sponsors, the people at BMA Hydroponics. You can find them at bmahydroponics.com. CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. They're at ccnexus.global. Also, Canada Days here, giving us a spot to help educate the people. And as always, the show is in the front window of the store. Just had some customers in. Al Rapp, always thank you to him. And a big thank you to you, Mike and Jason, for coming out to the program and talking to our listeners about suicide and bipolar and cannabis and your music. We really appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
And hey, we appreciate you coming on. We'll have to have you on again down the road. Also to you, Kim, thank you very much. You're doing a great job. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in the program. We always appreciate listeners. Thank you and good night. See you next week.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinion